Welcome to Never Rewrite. I'm Isaac Askew.
And I'm Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to talk about pushing the philosophy of Theseus shipping outside of the tech stack. So the thing that Isaac and I are hoping to bring today is we're going to talk about stories that evolved out of shadowing people, but
Mm-hmm.
how the idea of, hey, I see something's wrong, I see friction, and I'm going to fix it, not because anybody asked me to, but because I can and I see it, and outside of the tech stack. Because one, it's not a flaw, but one limitation of Theseus shipping is if you're not talking outside of the IT groups, and you're just
Mm-hmm.
talking to other developers, the only things you're going to fix, the only friction you're going to remove are in the tech stack itself. You're going to make the tech better, but that doesn't necessarily translate to actually making the outcomes better. If if people are living with a god awful workflow
Mm-hmm.
and you make that god awful workflow 30% more efficient, it's still a god awful workflow because the efficiency wasn't why it was god awful. So Isaac, I know you have a great story about an onboarding. You were asked to help with onboarding, and
Mm-hmm.
you helped this lady. So tell us that one. Kick us off.
Well, I think originally the ask was I was more of trying to understand what somebody's role at the company was. I think I was new to the company, and I was just going around and like kind of meeting people. And then once I saw someone's workflow, I was just like, "Oh, wait, what's going on here?" And so I guess you know how it is. Like whenever you started the company, and you just have like one way that you start doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It doesn't even matter if it's technology related. It could just be that you're working with one particular flow, and then you never really change that flow because you never really have a reason to change that flow. And then
Mm-hmm.
after 3 years goes by, then someone else comes in and goes like, well, what's going on here? um, because you just get used to the way you do things. Like there's no need for the self reflection. So
Right. There's the way you've always done things, and
yeah,
if you don't go out and seek a reason to change it,
yeah,
it takes a long time until somebody comes along. Usually your grandkids be like, "Grandpa, why are you
right.
doing it?" That would be, "Why, Grandpa? Why are you doing it this old-fashioned way? There's so much better ways to do it now."
Right. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right.
Right.
And so sometimes you don't know that maybe the thing is broken in the sense that it's taking a long time, but it just feels very familiar. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was asking to shadow this person, I wanted to, back in the day, you'd sit at their desk and watch how they did things, but this was remote. So I just hopped on a call and had her share the desktop. Um, and what the workflow was is for this particular company, they would work with hospitals, and some hospitals owned other hospitals. So you have like a different, we called them payees. And whenever we partnered with those companies to help them pay their bills, we would have to put all the payee records in our system. And then they would come in a spreadsheet of like, okay, here's our new partner and all their affiliated clinics or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And there was even an internal tool that was built that helped people add the payee, but it helped you add one payee at a time, right?
Okay. And
So
how many
back in,
lines would be on a spreadsheet?
well, I mean, when they started, probably not very many, which is probably why they built a tool and they
That
just
did
did it
them
one
one
at
at
a
a
time.
time. Yeah.
But at this particular flow, there was like 300 on there.
Mm.
And so I'm like, oh, so your week is essentially going through one by one and inserting these payees. And they didn't have a better flow for that at the time. So I'm like, all right, well, this is one of those things where we can build a script to write a script to automate some of this. And
Mm-hmm.
it sounded like at some point in the past somebody actually had a script to do this, but I don't know if it the format of the spreadsheet changed or something was
Mm.
off. I forget some of the details, but they just stopped doing it that way anyway. So this was a good opportunity for me to be like, okay, well, I don't know if I have the bandwidth to say I can just jump in and fix this for you. But at the time, nobody was against the idea, so I just suggested it, and I ended up correcting this script, um, and helping import all these payees, and just a
Mm-hmm.
one time thing. Um, so it saved her a ton of hours throughout the week to do this, and this is one of those areas where like whenever I got done, I kind of stepped back and thought, I wonder how many other areas are like this in the company
Mm-hmm.
where someone's just, used to, used to doing things a really old way and not realizing there's a better way. And this is especially applicable in like the AI age, I think, too, where we
Yeah.
can generate very bespoke, quick scripts that solve problems a lot faster than we could.
Yeah, in
Um,
my head, I was thinking, man, in today's world, you could have that script done in under an hour
oh,
with,
easily
with
with
AI.
tests and everything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with tests and
and better historical knowledge. Like for me, there was as I was correcting this script, I found a bunch of different columns that needed to be set to true or false or have these other kind
mm-hmm.
of things be adjusted. And since I was new to the company, I didn't know what some of the columns meant, and some of the columns were named very strange things like
Always.
BLP, whatever, and so you're like looking at the column confused at what it does, and you have to ask around what it does and kind of infer. And then after a long goose chase, suddenly you realize that column actually isn't even in use anymore, but it's just historically is always added there to the spreadsheet, that kind of thing. Whereas AI today could scan all that and you can have it pull in Confluence docs and Slack conversations and everything. It can tell you, oh, that one's not being used anymore, and here's why, and here's how you can go investigate yourself if you don't believe me, because Claude
Yeah, I
has been
wouldn't believe it.
hallucinating a lot lately. All right, so uh, that actually inspired me to put a bi-weekly placeholder on my calendar
Hmm.
for myself that was just called like it was like a 15-minute slot thing that said metacognition. So think about the way you think. And every time I saw that on my calendar, I'd think, okay, did I do anything these last 2 weeks that I am just doing because that's how I've always done it? Like, let me go through all of my processes and think if there's one thing I'm doing here that can be improved now, to where I don't have to spend especially things that are repetitive. In my
Yeah.
own workflows, is there a pattern in how I keep re-engaging with my company? And if so, is that pattern automatable, or is it just an artifact of the job I have to deal with?
Nice. Yeah, I had a similar experience where I was shadowing someone and they were in a sales role. And so I was watching them uh, doing the smile and dial.
Mhm.
And every time they were going to call a new person, they had to open up a form. And the form took 45 seconds to load. And I was like, well,
Jeez.
that's weird. Why does this form take 45 seconds to load? There's literally 1,000 salespeople at this company, and that's a lot of time to be spending on loading a form if they're going to be loading it all day, every day they talk to a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back and I looked, and the reason it was doing that is because there was a drop down field to say, there were several drop down fields that had a list of everyone in the entire company so that they could assign things.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who referred this, who's going to do the follow up, blah blah blah, like CRM kind of things. But because there were 1,000 salespeople in this company, it loaded 1,000 records from the database and plopped it into this drop down, and then for the next one loaded 1,000 records into the drop down.
Jeez. Okay.
Right. So first thing I did is I quickly made it one lookup and then reused it 3 times, and that took like 20 seconds off, and people were like, "Oh my god, they noticed." People noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and again, and then later, because that was more work, I changed it to a type ahead
Yeah.
where it's like this shouldn't. If you've got more than 10 elements, it probably shouldn't be a drop down anyway, and a
Right.
thousand is certainly way too many. And so like it was just the wrong structure entirely, and they didn't even use the form field all that much. It wasn't even like it was a
Or
critical
just
field.
lazy load it in general. Yeah, just load the form first. I imagine putting that in is, second to getting all the information from the client.
Yeah, the form
Mm.
load went from like 45 seconds to like 3.
Yeah.
Uh,
Nice.
it saved hundreds of hours a day of employee time, and just people were better. And again, nobody. It wasn't important enough they would ever make it over the line of some manager from operations or be sales talks to the manager of IT, says, "Hey, this is slow. Can you fix it?"
Mm-hmm.
No, this was me. I was shadowing someone, and I saw that there was a problem, and I didn't go out and fix everything because that form was a real piece of garbage. And over the years, I had at least 8 iterations on it that nobody asked me to do to make it from a steaming pile of garbage to something that, fair enough. Where,
A contained basement pile of garbage that's not steaming.
yeah, like another thing that I fixed, because after watching them, I was like, oh, the tabbing order was wrong. It was
Yeah.
under the covers, it was an HTML form, and at some point, some developer had screwed up the tabbing, and then other developers had never fixed it.
Oh, I
And
remember that
so
story. Yeah, yeah.
there's like 200 fields on this form, and the tabbing was all messed up. And the guys were like, boop, 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 shift, tab, tab, tab. And it was like they had muscle
They would
memory at this point.
memorize the number of tabs you had to do.
Right. Yeah. Like from first name to last name was 5 tabs
Oh my
because it jumped
gosh.
all. Uh,
Yeah.
and like I had somebody go through and we fixed it. Right. It was just, then it became ordered. And, but that put the idea in people's head like, oh, this workflow, this thing that's always been this way, that is terrible, and we've always had to deal with it. We could change it. We could fix, like, it doesn't have to be terrible. We could start thinking about
Yeah.
what would we actually like to be here. And that form specifically couldn't be changed because there was it was a regulated industry, and there were laws about what fields needed to be on this form. And
Hmm.
but just simply fixing the form started putting those ideas in people's heads, like, oh, we could do this differently.
Yeah. So that has me thinking about, like, I remember I used to always just wanted to just sit at the desk and go and just knock out stories left and right. And I would, occasionally run into something that was pretty complicated and required a bit of thought, where I've had to force myself to slow down and really plan it out. And almost every time I paused and went for a walk or took a break,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have a eureka moment. I just, if I just stopped trying to force the solution, I would have a eureka moment. So I think, so there's something to be said, because a lot of times people are not having these conversations with people like from operations, because they've got their own
Mm-hmm.
bunch of work to do. You got your velocity and your sprint. You can't inject a new story into this sprint. It's already packed full of all this. There's no room to address that. And there's some organizations even use like a 25% tech debt thing to try to tackle that. But that's not even organizational tech debt. That's just tech debt. The organizational tech debt is this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I find that, like, this isn't the first time, or the story that I told a moment ago isn't the first time that I helped somebody this way. I think pretty much every single time I've worked with the operations team and had a chance to
Mm-hmm.
see how they're handling customer support issues, how they're handling their own internal tooling or solving their own problems, or just seeing some very manual looking day-to-day operations, or even things that, like, we had really old tools and you just knew, kind of like what you're talking about with the tabbing, you just knew, oh, you have to scroll here and do that, and you have to, for this one you have to reset this thing and go back to it again to make it work. Weird things like that they just know how to do. And
Right.
that if you can finally just sit down with somebody and have the breathing room in your organization to be creative to solve these problems, and not just always be forced to pack the sprint with stories, then you can solve these problems. And I know, working with the ops team, like, it was just a great relationship. Everyone was thrilled every time we put some new stuff out there that really simplified their workflows. Because, like you're talking about with the forum, shaving off 45-second load stuff, that stuff gets thrown around all over the place. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone's like, oh, let's get the new feature out, or let's, improve this bottleneck over here. And then all the ops stuff gets forgotten because ops got it handled. But having that integrated engineer that can kind of pop in every now and then and be like, so how's ops doing lately? You guys need any tech improvements? Having some kind of pause for that, I think, would be super helpful.
Right. A different way that I would kind of think about it is the you need to, and this is something we've struggled with, ways to make it, to say this well. So I'm going to say it poorly. It's, you need to get the time to have tech and people outside of tech to sit at the table and spend the time to understand each other.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, the Theseus shipping doesn't work. I can go and I can sit there and optimize the performance of things all day long, but if it's not the things that matter to the customer, it doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
And similarly, when you talk to operations, you talk to someone in sales, they're somebody actually where the rubber meets the road. their desires are going to be very, very different. And their desires are going to be so much smaller than if
Mm,
you hear from the VP of sales wants tech to do some major project so that sales can do some major thing. Like
yeah.
that's not something that you theseus ship. That's a major project. But if you go and talk to a salesperson, be like, oh, what's your single biggest point of friction? And be like, oh, when I get a live one on the line and I do this, then I have to, somebody's supposed to follow up, but they don't always follow up. So there's no way. So then I have to remember to go check, which means, so now I write this down. So then every day I look at the list of things that I have to follow up.
Yeah.
I have to follow up on our internal people to make sure that they, something like that. You're like, oh, I could send you an email every day. Every
Hmm.
morning, here's the five things that you did. Here's the deals that you got going yesterday that you should check up and make sure that they got handled by the next person right.
Yeah.
Very small, very pointed. That will never come from the VP of sales,
Right. Yeah. Those will never make it
but
into
it will have a
stories.
huge impact, and it will get those lines of communication going.
Yeah. I think those things are super important. And I think they're even being made easier, like I mentioned earlier, in the age of AI, where you can actually spin up some simple fixes to people's problems. And sometimes they'll do it themselves. I've met a lot of pretty tech
Mm-hmm.
savvy, non tech people that, or non developers, I'll say, that have already figured out, oh, I can actually just tell Codex to spin up a local cron for me that runs every hour on my machine separately from Codex. I'm like, ah, yep, nice. Okay, cool. And it'll automate pulling data or whatever they need to do, or sometimes even manually get
Mm-hmm.
no some like navigate to a website and pull in any kind of new news articles or something like that. So I think we're in the age where that communication is getting easier, and it's going to be harder to to justify not doing that. To
Yes,
be honest.
especially because you have all this free time because the AI is doing the coding.
Hmm.
This is the kind of stuff where, when AI is off thinking about a problem for an hour, you could go talk to sales, you could go talk to operations. Um,
So, and maybe we'll get into this in the next episode, but I'm talking to somebody on the side that is actually trying to do a similar thing as we're talking about here with operations, or meeting with people and saying, hey, how are you using tech lately? Can we help out in any way? Is there an opportunity? And then just going to different organizations that are not traditional tech organizations, but could benefit from technology, especially now that we can write it faster for very
mm-hmm.
specific situations. And just going, hey, how can we? Is there anything inefficient here? Like, just show me your process. I'm a tech specialist. I automate things. Show me your processes across your thing, and let me see if I can think. Oh, wow, you just do it that way. I'm pretty sure I could do it for a fraction of the cost. So I think it's kind of a really cool business
Mm.
opportunity. I might have more to say
Yeah,
about it
when
next time.
you mentioned people using AI to do little one-offs, it made me recall in horror. I spent a decade on Wall Street, and Wall Street people have they're traders. They're fairly a lot of them are fairly clever, and even more of them have money. And
Mhm.
it was not uncommon to get called down to the trading floor and be like, "Hey, so and so has this really great tool that they wrote or that they paid somebody to write, and everybody wants it. So figure out how to roll out this thing to the whole company." You go and you look, and it's like a VB6. This is old stories here, so it's 20 years ago, but
Mhm.
still in 2005, 2006, VB6. And you're like, okay, it's like, okay, and it wants to do. Oh, it's connecting directly to the database from everybody's computer. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, we can scale this, but it's this is one of those the reason valid reasons to do a rewrite is totally inappropriate technology. I cannot have VB6 connecting directly to the production databases from every trading computer on the floor.
This is vibe coding in early 2000s, it sounds like.
Vibe code. This is what we were talking about last time
Yeah.
with Dustin, where there was always somebody's nephew's cousin's younger brother who was a computer genius.
Hmm.
And if you're dealing with Wall Street people, they have money where they like, screw it. If it's going to make me, I'm going to make an extra $300,000 or $400,000 this year. if I pay some kid $5,000 to write me a tool, they
Mhm.
have no problem writing a tool. Even though you're like, you just want to search security policies. You can't do this. Like, I'm making more
The
money, so now
money.
you need to deal with it.
That's a you problem.
Yeah, that is how Wall Street traders think. That's a you problem.
That's great.
So
All right.
yes, let's leave it there. Of yeah, get out, look for the friction, find it, get those conversations going, and that's how you can start getting the buy-in for larger transformations.
Talk to your colleagues and see how can I improve your life today with technology.
Yes. All right. Thank you all for listening. I'm Jeffrey Sherman.
And I'm Isaac Askew, and this is Never Rewrite.